Okay, here we go. Zogt the Heilige Mishnah. We did the Mishnah yesterday, but we'll do it again quickly today. We're almost a block behind. Amr Loi, Mesa Ishtecha. They told him his wife was Nefteris. And he married her sister, who they only shared a father. Mesa, that he was then told that his second wife died. And then he married this woman's sister, who they shared a mother. So there was no way was this woman, his third wife, related to his first wife. Mesa v'nasa choisha me'avia. Then she died. Again, then the third wife died. V'nasa choisha me'avia. Mesa v'nasa choisha me'ima. V'nimtu kudan kayamis. They turned out all being alive. Mutter b'yishayim v'shlishus v'chamishes v'poitris tzarisein v'asher b'shnei revius. V'ein bias achas mehen poiteres tzarasu. In bala shnia. The Gemara tells us that this means if in fact the first wife did die, so then the marriage to the second wife was chal, then mutar b'shnei revius u'partis tzarasein v'asher b'shlishis u'b'chamishes v'bias achas mehen poiteres tzarasu. V'tezah shana v'yemechad. Someone who's 9 years old in one day. Poisel al yidei achin. He passes his brothers from being able to do yibam. Achin poislin. And they passel him from making evil. He only passels if he made the bia before they did. The brothers passel, even if they were boiled after he was boiled, it still messes up his evil. And we will see the Gemara for details. Now the other brothers cannot do evil. What if one of the brothers was born the woman? Or if also a mimer, not to get, this child may not continue living with this woman. Weren't all of these cases after the Mishas Rishonah? The second case of the Mishnah is when in fact his first wife did die, which then rendered the condition of the second woman a kosher marriage. So this is where we left off yesterday, so now we're starting new. Good morning, Chazvi, thank you very much. Tchila Pasul, if he had Bia, before anyone else had Bia, it passes all the other brothers from doing Yibum. But if one of the brothers did Yibum, and then this boy, of course, illegally, was boiled this woman, it wouldn't make a difference. It's still, the woman is still married to the first brother that made Yibum. We learned from Abzid Barabosha that if someone makes mimer in his Yevama, and then a brother came to Ben Teshon of Yemechad, after he made mimer, one of the brothers, a brother who was a cotton, who was only 9 years and 1 day old, was boiled this woman, Pasla, he passes her, and now the person who made mimer can no longer make yibum on her. So Amri, we say, Bia Pasla Afidla B'Sayf. If this boy does Bia, it will even passel the person who made mimer from doing bia. So even if his bia came after, but if the cotton only makes mimer, then tchila pasel. If he makes mimer before any other brother has anything with this yevama, it disqualifies everybody else. But b'soif loy pasel. But if he made mimer after someone made mimer, it wouldn't make a difference. But ubia, are you telling me to bia afilu b'soif pasel? Are you going to tell me that if a bia of a ben teshon of yemechad will pasel even after somebody else made a ma'aser, such as a bia? For Katani, our Mishnah says not like that. Our Mishnah says ella shehu poisel tchila v'hein tchila v'soif. Our Mishnah says befeirs that the child only passes l'chatchila only if it was done first. Only the bia of a gadol passes b'soif. And then it says right after that, Ketzad ben Tesha Shana v'Yemechad Shabal Yivimtoi. So you see, even referring to Bia, it only passes with Chila and not B'Saif. Zok to the Gemara, you're right. There's a lot missing in this Mishnah. We need to do a major renovation. And this is how it should read. A boy who's 9 years in one day, and I never mentioned that the significance of 9 years in one day is that now his Bia is considered a Bia. He's still not an adult, but his Bia is considered a Bia. Who paisel tchila? He will paisel if he does Bia first. And that's going on Bia. The hein paisel tchila v'soif. And they paisel tchila v'soif. B'maimer. This that we say that his action only paisels if it preceded everybody else's action. That's by Maimer. Avol Bia. But if this gentleman who's 9 years in one day did a Bia, paiselas hafilu b'soif, it'll even pass after one of his older brothers took action. Ketzad, let's give an example. A 9-year-old who may be on the Yevamos, pasal al yidayach. Now none of his brothers could make yibum anymore. Beautiful. It means he passes them. It's an interesting nusach, but that's what it means. We had Rabbi Yosy said the same thing in the last motion.
How do you know about what it means? If that's not what it says.
I mean, you're asking it here, but you really could have asked the same question on Rabbi Yosy in the last Mishnah. I don't know. I guess that's the Lashon Mishnah.
Meaning from the context, you know that.
Yeah.
Yosy, remind me, what is the process of mimer exactly? What are the mechanics?
Mimer means when a woman falls liyibum, the only action that one should take is either bia or chalitza. Midrabanan, they said, if you made a kedushin on this lady, so there's 5 brothers, and one of the brothers went and made a kedushin, midrabanan, we look at it like he married her, and therefore she may no longer do even with any of the other brothers, only with the brother that made the mimer. So he sort of locks her up.
Locks her up, but what does he have to say something? Do something?
Yeah, he says, "I read Mukadeshly, Bitabasu Kadash Moshe Yisrael."
Oh, so he does a kedushin.
Right. Kedushin is an action that's not appropriate by a Yevamos, but since it's appropriate by a regular woman to marry her, they made a gzeira that once someone makes kedushin, nobody else can make yibum, because people are going to think then that kedushin doesn't work, because people won't make the distinction that this woman was Yevamos.
What's the difference between kedushin and mimer then?
Mimer is kedushin. So the reason why it's called mimer, there's actually a whole bunch of different explanations we had why it might be called mimer. One shot is that it's only midrabanan, so they call it mimer. It's not a real kedushin, so they have to make a distinction, because really kedushin is not teifus on a Yevamos. So it's only a drabanan action, and all it does really is it disqualifies anybody else from making yibum.
Okay.
And if he says Kedas Moshe Yisrael, does it work?
Yeah.
Kedas Moshe Yisrael.
Yes, because the Rabbanan say it does work. The Rabbanan makes it that it should work.
Those words Kedas Moshe Yisrael still works.
Yeah.
Okay.
A very interesting point you brought up. Very good. So could a cotton do mimer at all? Could he do mimer at all, and it'll impact that the other brothers can no longer make yibum? But Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Ben Teshon of Yom Echad, who poisel b'davar echad. He could passel only through taking one specific action, and we can all guess that's by a bia. But the achen poislin al yadoi, but his brothers who are bar mitzvah already, they could passel him. They could disqualify him from doing yibum by bar dvam with 4 different processes. Who poisel al yadei achen bebia? He could prevent all of his brothers from doing yibum if he's boiled this wood. But for achen poisel al yadoi, the way the brothers could disqualify him from doing yibum is either with bia, because they're miyabim her now she's their wife. The mimer, she can make mimer, which is a kinyan derban. The get, if they gave her a get, that also works with derbanan to disqualify anyone from making biyibum, and the chalitza, of course, which midairaisa severs the zika. So the question is, since we said now that even mimer works for a katan, and it would disqualify the other brothers from doing yibum, why does this brisa not list mimer as something that hu poisel al yidei achad? Why did it say that hu poisel b'davar echad if in fact the katan is poisel b'shnei dvarim, with mimer and with bia? Zok Gemara, I'll tell you what. Bia the posel bein b'chila bein b'soif. If the child makes bia, whether or not he made this bia before any brother did mimer or any other kinyan, or bia, or if he did it afterwards, psikala, it will damage the zika to others. They won't be able to do yibum anymore. Therefore, it lists it off in this brisa as working for a cut, because it works it works in all instances. But mimer, the betchila apostle, only if this cotton made mimer before anyone else did yibum. But besides apostle, if someone did yibum already, this cotton doing mimer has no impact whatsoever. Or if someone else did, if he did mimer and then if someone else did mimer and he did mimer afterwards, the second mimer will have no impact whatsoever. Loi psikale, that's not something that the Brisa wants to list off, because it's not. It doesn't work in all instances. It only works if it was done first. Itmar nami, we learned similarly. Amar Rida Shmuel, yesh loy get. What does that mean? Yesh loy get. A cotton could give a get and it'll have an impact. If a gadol gives a get to this Yevamos, there's 5 brothers, and one of them gives a get before anybody has a chance to do anything, no one is allowed to make yibum on her anymore. They do chalitza. So what does the get do if a cotton gave it? It will also prevent anybody else from doing yibum. The kaima alayu the. Once one brother said, we're not going to be doing any action over here, we're not going to be marrying this woman, no one's allowed to do it anymore. So Rabbi Shmuel said that even a cotton who gives a get will have an impact and it will answer anybody from doing it. The Chayin number of Tachlifa bar Avimai, and Rabbi Tachlifa bar Avimai also said yesh loy maimer. Tanya namihachi, we looked at Brisa as well that supports this. Yesh loy get, yesh loy maimer. The get of a cotton works and the maimer of a cotton works. Diver of Meir. Frak the Gemara, the Savar of Meir yesh loy get. Does Rav Meir in fact hold that the get of a child has an impact? But Tanya, we learned, Asu bias ben teisha k'maimer begadol. They made the bia of a ben teisha like maimer begadol, meaning midirabanon, it answers all the other brothers. That was the Tanakama. Rav Meir Omer also chalitzas ben teisha get begadol. They made the chalitza of a ben teisha like the get of an adult. V'im isa, and if you hold that the get of a cotton also works, like we just quoted, list Nikikitoi, it should say the chalitza of a ben teisha works just like the get of a ben teisha, and it answers all the other brothers for marrying this woman. Why does it compare it to a get of a gadol? It should compare it to the get of a cup. Even though we say the get of a cotton works, it doesn't have the same impact as the get of a gadol. What would the difference be? The Rabbi Gamliel, the Amar ain't get acher get. Rabbi Gamliel holds that if one brother gives a get, and then the next brother gives a get, the second get given has 0 impact. What impact might it have? Well, the first brother who gave a get, and we say the get has an impact, that get makes it that this woman is considered like someone who he was megarish. Someone who you're megarish, you're also in all her kroivos. So the first brother who gave the get, he's going to be also in all the kroivos of his Yevamos. But the second brother who gave the get, he won't be also in any of the kroivos, because his get is not even recognized as a get at all. Hanamili begadol. That's only if the first get was given by a gadol. So hanamili begadol acher gadol the cotton acher cotton. If a gadol gave a get after a gadol, or a cotton gave a get after a cotton, and we're talking to a Yevamos, then the second get has 0 impact whatsoever. Aval gadol acher cotton, but at first a cotton gave a get, and then a gadol gave a get, then we say mahani. we say that the second get will have an impact because the impact of the get of the cotton doesn't completely sever the zika. There's still some zika left over for the next brother who was a gadol to sever with his get. This is all midrabanan, of course, and therefore this woman is considered grushasoi, and he would be usher on her kroivos. And l'rabbanan damar yesh get achaget, and according to Rabbanan who hold that there's always a get achaget. If two brothers give a get, they're both usher on the kroivos of the shivama. Hanimili begadol achagadol. That would only be if a gadol gave a get after a gadol, or a cotton nach a cotton. But if a cotton gave a get after a gadol, the cotton's get is nothing. Loi mahani, the get would have no impact, and this cotton would not be usher on the kroivos of that woman. So you see, even though the get of a cotton works, not to the same degree as the get of a gadol. So to summarize, B of a cotton works sai before anyone did mimer, sai after anyone did mimer, it asers her. Mimer works only before. If the cotton did mimer before anybody had a chance to do anything, everybody else is also to do even mother. And get works before as well, but not after. Okay, let's see the next Mishnah on Daf Tzadik Vav Amud Beis. These are easy Gemara, so we should be able to at least get started on a new parak today. I want to mention that today's broadcast is being sponsored by Bensi. Bensi's here with us, by Bensi Bench. Lil Nishmas, his grandfather, whose yahrzeit was yesterday, which was Yud Beis Sivan, and his grandfather's name is, let me refresh my memory. His grandfather's name was Rav Pinchas ben Reb Zef Klein. Olav Hashalom, he should be a Melech Yosher, the whole family. Zog the Heilig Gemara Vayter. Ben Teshon of Yomechad. Someone who was 9 years old. Shabal Yevimton, who was born in Yevamos. The Achagach Bo Aleh Achiv, Shu Ben Tes V'Yomechad. And then another brother who was also a minor was born in Yevamos. Allah is post all the other. Neither brother could now make Yibam, they're both Asherta. Rab Shimon says, Loi Poisel, he doesn't pass. And Rashi explains that the Tanakama holds that the Bia Ben Tesvi Mechad is a shvacha type of Yibum. And therefore, there's still room for the other brother's Yibum to be chal there and interfere with his Yibum, and then they're both going to be also to marry. However, Rab Shimon Aimer, Loi Poisel, it doesn't pass it, because Rab Shimon learns that the Bia Ben Tesvi is a suffix if it works. So Mimanavshech. If it works, then the first one is fully married to this woman, and the second bia was just a bia's nus. And if it doesn't work, then no one's puzzled because neither one's bia had any impact. What happens if one of these boys, a 9-year-old boy, was bal yivimtai? The ach bal tzaros. There were two Yevamos. There were two women, two wives of the nifta. So first he was born one, and then he was born the other. The fact that he was born the other will passel him from marrying the other one because it's Tzaras HaErba now. Because once again, if the first one worked, then the second one was just a bias nus. And if the first one didn't work, then the second one doesn't have any impact either. Tanya, Omer Lahem Rab Shimon Chacham. Rab Shimon told the Chacham, Miman Nefshech, Im Bia Rishayna Bia. If you hold that the bia of a ben teshen of Yomechad, so the first bia was a good bia, and it's koine midaraisa, and it's his full Yevamos, it's his full wife now. Well, then bia shnia in a bia. Then the second bia that was done is merely a bia's nus, and it should have no impact. Bia rishayna ain't a bia, and if the first bia wasn't a bia because you don't consider the bia of a cotton to be a good bia, to be koine Yevamos, well then bia shnia nami ain't a bia. So then the second bia won't either be koine any type of Yevamos, and she should still be mutter. Our Mishnah is not consistent with Menazeh. Why? The Tanya we learned, what's significant about our Mishnah, Rashi is Masnisin the Choshev Bia Zu Kemaimer. Our Mishnah considers this Bia like Maimer, which means it answers everybody else. Because Tani, and it says, the Mahani Maimer Achamaimer, we have two cases in our Mishnah. One is when two brothers did this evil, and one is when one brother did this yibum on two women. If we're saying that the bia of a cotton doesn't have a full impact, it's only like a mimer, well, then our mission is in essence stating that mimer acha mimer works. Say if two brothers did mimer on one yivama, and say if one brother did mimer on two yivamas. But Nazir doesn't hold like that. The Tanya ben Nazir Yomer, yesh mimer acha mimer b'shnei yivamin v'yivam achas. If there's two brothers who did mimer on a woman, then each mimer has a koyach. But then mimer acha mimer b'shnei yivamis v'yivam echad. But if it's only one yavam and he made mimer on one, there's no room anymore for him to make mimer on the second one. Our Mishnah doesn't hold like that. Zok the next Mishnah. Ben Tesha Shanam V'yem Echad, a 9-year-old. Shaba al Yevimtai, who was born on his Yevama. And then Umeis, and then he dies. So we don't know if he was Koine or not, right? Either you hold like the Tanakama, that it's a Shvacha Kinyan, it's not a full Kinyan. Or you hold like Reb Shimon, that it's a Suffolk if it was Koine. If he dies, if he dies without children, no one can do Yibam on this woman because it's possibly not his wife at all. So you do Chalitza and you don't do Yibam. How about Nasa Isha Umeis? What happens? Now, why do you need Chalitza? You need Chalitza because of the first brother. The first brother who died, the first husband of this woman, definitely triggered a Chiyuv Yibam. And if the Bias of the Bentes didn't have an impact, then she's still a Yevama, so therefore you have to do Chalitza, but you can't do Yibam. How about Nasa Isha Umeis? What if a Bentes Shan of Yemechad made Kedushin and died? We know his Kedushin is not a Kedushin at all. He's a cotton, and therefore Rezu Ptura, of course, there's no Chiyuv Yibam because we don't even consider it like she's married. Bentes Shan of Yemechad Jabal Yibam. What happened if a Bentes Shan of Yemechad did Yibam? Umisha Higdol, and then when he grew and he became a Gadol, Nasa Isha Acheres. So now he has two wives. He has the Yevama, and he has the second wife, who's properly married to him. Umeis, then he died. If he never had a bia with the first woman after he became a Gadol, come to Chayz, all that he had with her was the bia of a cut, which is a shvacha bia, and it's not really kind of her. So what do we have over here? We have one woman, his second wife, who's for sure mechuyev in yibum. His first wife might be mechuyev in yibum because could be the zika from the first brother is still there, or maybe not, because maybe his yibum is a good yibum, and therefore she's not zakuk from the first husband, she's zakuk from the second husband, and then one of these two women needs yibum. So how do you deal with it? Are we showing you the woman who we're not sure if she was kanui to the second husband? She just gets chalitza, not yibum, but she just have to have chalitza because maybe she's still zakuk from the first husband. Bashniya, on the second wife, you can either do chalitza or yibum, no problem. He can do yibum to either one of these two women, because Reb Shimon holds it's a suffix if the first wife is either not married to him at all, or if it is fully married to him. So therefore, he could do yibum even on that wife. Someone could do yibum on that wife because if this bia was never a good bia, well then she still has fallen to yibum from the first brother. And if, in fact, the yibum was a good yibum, then she's falling from the second brother. The chalit l'shniya, and he'll do chalitza to the other wife. Echad shehu ben Tisha, son of Yom Echad, the echad shehu ben Esrim, shalohevi shtei sayros. So now the Mishnah is going into another thing. The Mishnah is saying that one remains a cotton until he brings two sayros. So if he doesn't show any signs of maturity, even if he's 20 years old, he still has a status of a cotton. At what point does he have the status of a gadol? Because we learned at 20 years old, if the Shimone Islanders or Shimone Sris, he's considered a gadol already. So the Gemara is going to clarify for us exactly when he becomes a Sris, at what age, and under what conditions. Amar Rava said, Ha the Amar Rabbanan. This that Rabbanan said, Zika Shnei Yevamin, Michlit Chalta, Yevumay Lemiyabma. There's a halacha that if someone has a Zika from two Yevamim, how would someone have a Zika from two Yevamim? The shaila would be if the standard cases, Rashi tells us if there were three brothers, Gimel Achin, so I'm on the third wide line of Rashi. There were three brothers, Reuben, Shimon, and Levi. Nusuin Gimel Nachriyos are married to wife A, B, and C. Reuben dies, and Shimon made Maimer on A. So now Shimon did Maimer on A, which is not a full Yibum, it's just a Rabbanon, and he's married fully to B. And now Shimon died. Both A and B, who are Shimon's wives, don't do Yibum with Levi, they only get Chalitza. From reading the Gemara said, Izikas Beis Yevamim Dairaisa, if the problem is because wife A is still Zakuk from Reuven because no one did Yibum yet. Only Maimer was done. But she's also a Shtickle Shimon's wife because he did Maimer. So now there's a Zika from two men. There's one woman who's following Yibum, both from Reuven and from Shimon. If you hold up Midai Raisa, such a woman is not covered by the din of Yibum, well then Chalitza Nami Loiteboy. You shouldn't need Chalitza at all, the Gemara asks. The reason why this woman cannot do Yibum is Gzeira Shemayoimu Shtei Yevamos Habois Mibayis Echad Misyabnos. The reason why she cannot do Yibum is because if she does Yibum, Mach must the first because Midai Raisa, she didn't do Yibum yet with Shimon. So Midai Raisa, she's still Zokah Yibum from Reuben. So if a Levi does Yibum on both these women, A, because of Reuben, and B, because of Shimon, people are going to mistakenly think that you do Yibum on both wives. Because right now it looks like both these women are married to Shimon. Okay, so let's see what our Gemara says. Amar Rabba, how do Amar Rabbanan Zika Shnei Yevamim, where there's two Yevamim here. Michlit Chalta, you do Chalitza, but Yibum Loi B'Yabim, you can't do Yibum. Loi Tema Hechadi Katzara. It doesn't only apply, like in the case I just quoted, where Shimon had his own wife, and there's two women involved. The Ikal Migzar Mishum Tzara, and the reason why you don't let anyone do Yibum on wife A is because it's going to look like he's doing Yibum on both wife A and wife B, and they're both Shimon's wife. Don't say that, because the Hahacha Leka Tzara, over here, there's not a Tzara. In other words, if you look at over here in our Mishnah, what occurred? The Ben Tes V'Yom Echad was boiled this woman, and that created the same situation as a mimer, because we're saying that the Bia of a Ben Tes V'Yom Echad is just like a mimer. And because he did mimer on her, and he dies, the next person has to do chalitza not yibum. So the hava lekatzar, and still michlitz chal to yibum le'ibiyabim. It still has the same problem, even if there was no other wife there. Now the problem with that is, in fact, the case that the Gemara gives is nasa isha acheres umeis, and then it says so there is another woman there. So Rashi explains this as to why there's a raya. Rashi says, oh, no, Rashi does not say. But the Meforshim, I thought it was in Rashi. The Meforshim tell us that even if this person, this Ben Shesham V'Mechad, even if he was not married to Anisha Acheres, he was only married to this woman who he did Yibam on, we would still say chayletzes v'loy mishabemes, because it says a rishona, no matter what, is chayletzes v'loy mishabemes. So you see the psak on this woman, regardless of the second one, is chayletzes v'loy mishabemes. And the reason for it is because the mimer is only midrabanan, and therefore we're not sure if she fell from one or from the other. She fell a shtickle from both. There's a shtickle zika from both. Okay, Zok the Gemara Vayt. Nasa Isha Umetz. Zok the Gemara Tanina Laha the Tanu Rabbanim. We have a brisa that seems to support what our Mishnah says. It says Shoita v'Katan Shenasu. So what we're highlighting is if a ben Tisha Shana v'Yamechad marries a woman, that's not considered a marriage. And therefore, if he dies, there's no yibum necessary. Because it says Shoita v'Katan Shenasu. A Shoita and a Katan who got married, umeis when they died, they don't follow yibum. You know why? Because they're not considered married. So now we're going to focus on the second case of the Mishnah, where Ben Teshuvah v'Yamechad did yibum on the woman while he was a minor. When he became a gadol, he married a second wife, but he never made another bia on this first wife, meaning she remained with the status of mimer, but not a full yibum. Frek the Gemara, the yasu bias bentes k'mimer begadol. Why don't we say that the bia of the bentes should be just like a gadol did mimer? And if that's the case, v'sitcha Torah miyibum, and therefore, even the tzara shouldn't be able to yibum. Why does the Tanakh in our Mishnah say that v'ashniya oy cheletzes oy mishabemes, the shniya shouldn't be able to do yibum? Because we already said if you do yibum on the shniya, normally we say that if you have one wife who you can't do yibum on, you can't do yibum on the second wife as well. And Rashi says v'yasu bias tes k'maimer begadol zlitcha ishtei gemurim yibum. Even the wife that he married after he became an adult, she shouldn't either be mechuyev in yibum. He should have to do chalitz on her because of the second wife who he did a bia with when he was a katan. Kahid dalarachin, just like the case of dalarachin that we quoted earlier. The katani are elu choltzos, fa'afilu ishte gemura nitches. We said Shimon's wife, who's his bona fide wife, even she, you cannot do yibum on. You can only do chalitza. And the reason why that is mipnei she tsaras ba lasika shnei Yevamos, because her co-wife is not yibum material because she has a zika from two men on her, and therefore you cannot do yibum on her tzara. So we all, just like you say by a tzara sa'erba, you don't do yibum. So too the tzara of a woman who has two zikas, you shouldn't be able to yibum on either. Why does our Mishnah say that Shniya, the wife that he married when he was an adult, yibum should not be an option for this woman? Zok to Gemara, Omarav, loy asu bias bentes k'maimer begadol. They actually didn't make a bias bentes k'maimer begadol. It's not like mimer, and therefore, even though if there was a mimer here of a gadol, like in the case of Arba Achen, it would passel the other wife from being able to do yibum. The bia of a cotton is not even as strong as mimer begadol. Shmuel argues, and he said, asu ve'asu. So our Mishnah holds clearly that the bia bentes is not as strong as mimer, and therefore, on the other wife of this cotton, you could still do yibum. But Shmuel says no, also ve'asu. So for the Gemara, if Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan both hold that bia of the cotton is like mimer begadol, then v'yasu. So why in our Mishnah, again, back to the same question, why in our Mishnah do we say that his wife you could do yibum on? In fact, it's a machloikis tanoim. Hach tana d'arba achen, the tana d'arba achen that said that neither of Shimon's wives are subject to yibum gazer mishum tzara. They said that the reason why you cannot do yibum on the wife is because of her tzara, who has Zika Shnei Yevamos, and we don't allow either one to do Yibam. Bashemina Begado, and the discussion in Arba Achen was speaking where everyone was adults, except that Shimon made mimer on the Alman of Reuben. But the Huadim Bekat, it would be no different if Shimon was a cotton. It would have exactly the same rule. But Haida Amar Godol, the reason why it's chapped on a Godol over there is Mishum de Begodol Kai, because the subject matter before and after this Mishnah was discussing about a Godol. So we stuck to the same cases that they were discussing until now. The Haitana, the Hacha, but our Tana here, Svir Lei Osu, in fact, they did treat the Bia of a cotton like the Maimer of a Godol, but that only is to make her herself disqualified from Yibum, because we say that she's coming from a Zika of two brothers. But our Mishnah holds that you don't make a Gzeira, that the Tzara should also be disqualified from Yibum. And our Tana of our Mishnah tells us this halacha using the case of a cotton who did Bia. But who did the Godel? He would hold the same thing in the case of three brothers where Reuben, Shimon, and later Reuben died. Shimon did mimer on Reuben's wife. Our Tana would hold over there as well that although you don't do Yibam on wife A, who was originally Reuben's wife, you do Yibam on wife B, who is Shimon's wife proper. So why did our Mishnah happen in the case of cotton? The Bekatan Koi, because that's exactly what we're talking about. Our Mishnahs are talking about a cotton. So use the example of a cotton. Now we're going to get into a very fascinating Gemara. From here until the end of the parak is a very fascinating Gemara. Very, very fascinating. Also, Rabbi Lozer, Amar Lishmai Tzebei Midrash. Rabbi Lozer said over his shtickle Torah in the Beis Medrash. What was the shtickle Torah that he said? He said over this story that Rabbi Yochanan holds Asu v'Asu, and that the Machlokes Tanoim as to whether or not Gozer Mishum Tzara. But V'lo Amar Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Lozer, who was a Talmud of Rabbi Yochanan, said this svara over and didn't say it in Rabbi Yochanan's name. We always like to say over how Rashi once told me, Yosef Zalman, you could say over all my Torah in your name, but Chas v'Shalom, never say your Torah in my name. But here, Rabbi Lozer said Rabbi Yochanan's Torah, and he didn't identify that he was saying it in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Shamar Rabbi Yochanan heard that Rabbi Lozer, his Talmud, was peddling his Torah and not stating explicitly, this is what I heard from my Rebbe Rabbi Yochanan. Ikvid, Rabbi Yochanan got very upset. All Lagabei Rabbi Ami Rabasi. And Rabbi Yochanan went to Rabbi Ami and Rabasi. He told them, and he went to Rabbi Ami and he was angry. He was expressing his frustration that Rabbi Lozer didn't say it over in his own name. So they wanted to calm him down, and they sort of threatened him that by him getting nervous, it could be very dangerous. And they told him, isn't this a true story that occurred in the Beis HaKnesses of Tveria? They had a bolt that had a ball at the end of it. It's something that could be used as a pestle to crush. It can be used to grind with, but that's not really what it was designed to do. But it could be used to do that. And there was a question about it, if it's considered a keli, and if it would be muksan Shabbos or not. So Rashi's benager sheyesh barosha glustera, 4 lines from the bottom. Its edges end is thick like a ball. It's really great to grind and pulverize garlic. Or for some other grinding purpose. They had a shaila if you're allowed to use that to lock a door with as a bolt. Rabbi Lozer said it would be aser. Rabbi Yosy matter, since it does have the status of a keli, it's not muksa or mutal. So there was a shaila if this item was muksa or not, and they got heated. Rabbi Lozer, Rabbi Yosy. I'm sorry. I think unless it's a ribiyuchid for the door in advance, it's just a piece of metal. Could be has to be hanging too. Yeah, we had that. We had about a window that it has to be hanging. Otherwise, it's Shiloh Binyan. A bolt, I don't think will be Shiloh Binyan. It could be. I don't remember. Okay. So they got so heated in their machloikis. Koru Sefer Torah b'chamosim. They ripped the Sefer Torah out of anger. Frank Gemara, could you say that anybody ripped the Sefer Torah? No. They were so involved that by mistake a Sefer Torah got ripped. So that was clearly a problem. And the Mefarshim tell us, Bus Epis, it was Nikra Sefer Torah b'chamosim, because the machloikis between Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yosy was a machloikis about what Rabbi Gamaliel paskin. So they weren't just arguing, he had his Chavis Das, and he had his Chavis Das, where we would say, Elu v'elu divra lekim chayim. They were arguing about what somebody said. One of them had to be wrong. So that's why the Rebbeinu Shalom made it that a Sefer Torah should get torn to show that one of you people are not saying divra lekim chayim. Rabbi Yosy ben Kisma, and Rabbi Yosy ben Kisma witnessed this tragic event. Omar, he said, being that the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us such a symbol to protest how you're arguing with each other, to me, Ani, I would be shocked if this mismarriage does not become one day a church. So you would have thought that Rabbi Yossi would say, okay, I'm not going to be makbid, because I don't want Chas v'Shalom such a bad thing to happen. How do it could say? Rabbi Yossi got even angrier. Why? Omar, Chavrusa, Nami. There, Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yossi were arguing, and they one's arguing on the other, and they shouldn't have been so rough with each other, and that's where there's napa. But I'm not talking about my Chavrusa. This is my Talmud. If a Talmud says something over and doesn't say it over b'shmi, there I have a right to be upset. That's not an napa. So they didn't calm him down. Good? Yeah. That's right. No, he was talking with somebody else. With a Rebbe, you have to say it over b'shmoi. This was a different type of situation. It was a different type of situation. His time was that Rabbi Elazar didn't say it over in his name. Rabbi Elazar gesucht Allah for Rabbi Yochanan, and nicht der Mann as deze Rabbi Yochanan. The other man was machlokes, but it was two chavrisis. Then there was two chavrisis. But Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yossi were contemporaries. None was the other one Talmud. So are you trying to tell me to get Thomas was insulted? You're making it sound like Rabbi Elazar is an equal of mine. Rabbi Elazar is not an equal of mine. Rabbi Elazar is my Talmud. Zok to Gemara, oil legabei Rabbi Yaakov Rabbi Yaakov really came by. Omerlei, he said, I'm going to calm Rabbi Yochanan down, and I'm going to show Rabbi Yochanan that when Rabbi Elazar says something, even if he doesn't say who he got it from, everybody knows it's automatic. Adesik gesucht from our Rebbe. Why? Omerlei, he said, it says in the pasuk, Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe Avdoi, like the Rebbeinu Shalom commanded Moshe, Kain Tziva Moshe es Yeshua. That's exactly how Moshe gave it over to Yeshua. And I'm going to show Chaim Tzvi that I was listening yesterday, because the fellow who spoke said that Moshe Kibul Torah Sinai Umosril to Yeshua, and he said he was only mekabel not to keep it, to give it right over to Yeshua. So everything that Moshe got from the Rebbeinu Shalom was given over to Yeshua. V'chein also Yeshua, that's exactly what Yeshua did. But Heiser Dover Mikol Asher Tziva Hashem al Moshe. He didn't miss one thing to give over to Klal Yisrael from everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe. Frag the Gemara. V'chi al kol Dover she'omer Yeshua do you think every single time Yeshua said anything to Klal Yisrael, you think he actually announced that Moshe said this? And Rashi says, Yeshua, hey, love a mikra. The pasuk is saying Eidos on Yeshua. Shekol Masha Asa, everything he did was Mipi Moshe Asa. Va'afilu Masha Omer Stam, even if he didn't explicitly mention this is for Moshe. Shari Efsher. The whole dover v'dover shomer Yeshua, Omar Kach Omar Moshe. It's impossible to believe logically that every time Yeshua opened his mouth, he said, "This is what Moshe Rabbeinu said." Yet Nevertheless, the pasuk says Eidos that this is Mipi Moshe. So Zok the Gemara. So why? Because Yeshua was Moshe's Talmud. So it's obvious that everything he said over was from Moshe. El Yeshua Yosy v'Doris Stam. He Stam said drushes. Everyone knew this wasn't Yeshua's own lumdis. This was the Torah of Moshe. So Rabbi Yochanan, you can calm down. Because after Rabbi Elazar Talmidah, Rabbi Elazar Talmud, Yosy v'Doris Stam. He might be Stam saying Torah, but Hakal Yodim, everybody knows he's Shalachi. It's your Torah. Amar Lahem. So he told them, I don't like how you try to be Matthias me. So I assume he was talking about. I assume he was talking about Rabbi Yaakov Ha'idi. So he told who did he say? He told Rabbi Ami Rabasi. Now with threats. This is how you should be Matthias. Correct the more, but Lamaisa of Rabbi Yochanan, the my timer, Kopet Kulai. Lamaisa, why was he so upset about it? It says, of Gura Boyalacha Ilam. David HaMelech said, I want to be in both your worlds. Sayin Olam Hazeh and Sayin Olam Haba. I want to be in both worlds forever. Could someone possibly be living simultaneously both in Olam Hazeh and in Olam Haba? Even after I'm nifter, halavai, they should say things in my name in Olam Hazeh. Why? Someone who's no longer benachayim. If they quote his Torah by Olam Hazeh, his lips move in the kever. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak ben Zira b'Tema Shimon is Zira my car. Where do you see this from the pasuk? It says v'chikeich, your beautiful words are kiyayin atoy, like beautiful wine. Hoylech l'doidi l'misharim, that goes from one friend to another friend. Doivei sifrei yishanim, it makes those who are sleeping. It makes their lips move. It's such good wine. So we're saying this about Torah, kekaymer shalanovim, like a vat that has grapes in it, that are softening up so that we can press them. Just like these grapes that are already softened. If someone merely touches it, right away they start to bubble over and release wine. So of course, the Yaakov asked, it's not logical to say magic. The body can be totally rotted. What do you mean your lips are moving? They're dead. So most of the Meforshim of our Masber, the Maharal's Masber, and Rabbi Leo Dessler's Masber, that there's a part of our neshama that stays down here, called the Ruach, and part of our neshama goes up there and is in Shemayim. And that's why there's you go down by the cave of Agadol, because there's a connection. There's actually a direct connection. The Koyach HaDibur is a fascinating thing. It's a hybrid. First, the Koyach HaMachshava is Ruchni. Touching, moving something with our hands, that's Gashmi. But the Koyach HaDibur is a bond, it's a hybrid. It's Ruchni and Gashmi combined. Because Dibur, the Koyach HaDibur is a double Ruchni. Yet, it comes from our Neshama. Yet, it speaks through the lips. So, the Mashar's Masber, and other Echemai Masber as well, is that when you say over Torah is what binds the nefesh and the ruach from top to bottom. So when they're saying Torah in someone's name, the ruchniistic part of the koyach hadibur is stimulated even bekever. I'm just saying these words. I don't really understand the depth of what this means. So if tzaddikim don't rot, then it would actually move their lips because the koyach haruchni is still there of the dibur, so it would still impact. That's what they seem to say. They actually seem to say is that it actually makes the tzaddik's lips move because through the koyach haruchni, even though he's not alive anymore, but the koyach haruchni is there forever because speech is a ruchnistic function. It's a hybrid function. So ruchni is the function that makes the body move. Yeah. At Echad ben Teshanim. So now we're talking about at what point someone becomes a gadol. So the Mishnah says that even if he's 20 years old, if he didn't yet bring Simonim, he's still a gadol. Frank Gemara, we learned differently earlier in the Masech. We learned ben Esrim Shona Shalahevi Shteisaris, someone who was 20 years old who didn't yet bring Simonim. Yaviu Raya Shu ben Esrim, bring a Raya, bring his birth certificate, and prove that he's already 20. But who has a risk? Needs this risk. So you see, at that point, he gets the status of a gadol. The same thing with a female. Bas Esrim Shona Shalahevi Shteisaris, Yaviu Raya Shi Bas Esrim, the islands. So how could you tell me until she brings Stay Cyrus? They remain as a Ketanim. You see from this price that at 20 they become Gedolim. We learned that unless there's Simonis Riz that are Noiler on him. And we learned that that's not fair, and there's a whole bunch of different Simonim that we learn about the Riz has to have. If he has those positive identifying factors that he's a Riz, then if he doesn't have Simonim, you pronounce him as a Gadol Ashritz. But we're talking about here in our Mishnah, we had no Simonim at all. He didn't have the Simonim of a Shritz. He just didn't have Shtei Cyrus. And therefore, no matter how old he is, we still say he has the status of a Gadol. It's Medui in the Mishnah before that a Shritz has to have Simoni Shritz. The Ketani, who has a Shritz? He is the Shritz, which is mashma that there's actually Simonim of a Shritz. And that's why at 20, he's declared as a Shris. Shemamida. If he didn't get any Simonis Riz, so you're saying he remains a cotton at Kama. Up until what point do you say he still has the din of a cotton? Until roiv of someone's life. I'm not sure exactly what number that is. What? 36? So that's 35. When he's 36. Okay, so that's what it means. Okay, could be 35. I didn't see anybody who says Beferish. He also like made the Rabbah. When they would come to Rabbah with someone who didn't bring Simonim, he would tell them, Ika Chashiva was a skinny guy. Amanu Zilu Avrayo, go get him to eat. He should get fatter because sometimes that causes the Simonim to come out. Vibori, and if he's a fat guy, Amanu, they would say Zilu Akashu, put him on a diet, maybe let him get thinner because maybe if he gets thinner, he'll have Simonim. Sometimes they'll fall out if someone is too weak. And sometimes they'll fall out if someone's too heavy. And therefore, he would tell them to change their state. Sometimes that would prompt the growth of Simonim. So really today's daf is Tzadik Zion, so we're 3/4 of a block behind. And tomorrow is a very, very interesting Gemara. And hopefully we'll be able to push hard and catch up.